Why is it so important, or do you that this be conceived of, organized, run, staffed by people with experience? Peer thought, organized, run. Why is that important, and why is it different?
I think for a long time, having things done to us, even with the best of intentions, has led to harm. And I think that, being able to name what healing looks like for each one of us, and being able to create that space for other people to explore and to name what healing looks like for them, that's so crucial. And to do it in a way that is not with the permission of powers that be, with psychiatrists or people looking over our shoulder. It gets away from that kind of paternalism and creates a space for true autonomy. And I think that it's essential that the peer-run respites remain peer-run, that they not be connected to a clinical program or have that kind of medical oversight, because without that autonomy, there's always that risk, at least in the United States. If there are clinical providers who have the power to lock you up, if you don't do things the right way, or quote unquote, whatever they are prescribing, as long as there's that fear of forced and coerced treatment, I don't think that true lasting healing can take place in a relational kind of way.
So why it's really important is, who knows best what my experience is? Me. Not somebody who meets with me 5 minutes walking down a hallway in a hospital doing a checklist. In fact, in the hospital, why would I tell the truth? I want to get out someday. Right. And so that idea that Vic brought up about force and control, that's really going to impact a relationship. And that's a great thing about peer respites. People only go there if they want to go there. They're not being coerced. When you take power and control out, people are allowed to focus on self-determination. And they asked me this question when I went there. They said, what would be helpful? And at first I was upset, because I thought, everybody's the expert on me but me. And they got me to actually consider what I could do to be part of my own rescue, which is a really important piece of healing from trauma. And I get to tell my story the way I understand it in my framework, instead of somebody else telling me what my experience is and what it means. And the Wildflower Alliance, the whole organization, is an organization of people who've gone through life-interrupting challenges, and they get to define those challenges in any way. And I may change how I define them over time. I may get different perspectives, and that's okay too. And so, who really is the expert? And now there may be plenty of people in clinical roles that have expertise in certain areas that I can benefit from. Absolutely. Like, I went to a somatic therapist about, getting the trauma out of my body, the things I couldn't even remember that my body was having a reaction to. Awesome. But, the other thing I like to think about is, I was told I was hopeless. I was told I would never recover. I would be on medication my whole life, and that I should accept and adjust to that prognosis. And that was actually part of me getting well, was accepting I couldn't get well. Right. That was part of the game they played. And if I defied those odds, and lots of people have, maybe it's time to look at, if we were really scientific, we would say, well, your theory is inaccurate because it doesn't play out. And that's why it's important. It's important to have firsthand lived experience, because if people have been able to navigate out, if they're having this ability to create lives that they want to live, good quality lives, then maybe they know something.
It's important because it's opportunity to really recognize and see a person, and to honor our experiences, to recognize, like Vic said earlier, we didn't just land here, just dropped out of the sky and dropped into the system, and thinking about the impact and prevalence of trauma, and thinking about changing that question from, what's wrong with you to what has happened. When I think about peer support and I think about what happens in the peer run respites, we all have story. We recognize that things have happened. We have these experiences and we're interested in hearing them. We have space to honor those things rather than just focusing on, this list of symptoms, and this diagnosis and removing or losing the person in all of this. We really seek to connect and honor the person. And in that, people become empowered. People recognize that they have value because for so long the message is that you don't know anything, and you really someone else knows best for you. And when people are told that you don't know, you can't know, or you're wrong, if you get that message over and over, then it's just kind of sitting back and allowing ourselves to be swept up into the system. And peer support says, no, you have value. There's mutuality here, and each of us has something to contribute, no matter what. And if we can tap into that, just that, recognizing a person as a valuable entity, just inherently with value. That's what we get in peer support and with peer respites. And I think that would be lost and is lost when we add the clinical side in, when the focus then becomes about this illness, rather than, the focus being about this person and about their experience and about what they want to do with their lives.